all across America and around the world. This is Veterans Radio. This is Veterans Radio.
Welcome to Veterans Radio. I am Jim Fausone. I'm the officer of the deck today. We've got some great programs for you. I think you'll find very interesting. We always want to remind you can find more about Veterans Radio at its Facebook site or at the web. Veteransradio.org is our new URL, veteransradio.org, where we're on the web 24/7. You can find a lot of our podcasts there as well. We post new ones every Tuesday, so you can get a new story, a new interview, something you didn't know before by going to veteransradio.org. And before we get started, we want to thank our sponsors. First up, we want to thank National Veteran Business Development Council, nvbdc.org. It was established to certify both service-disabled and veteran-owned businesses. You'll find out how they can help your business by going to nvbdc.org. We want to thank Legal Help for Veterans. Legal Help for Veterans fights for veterans' disability rights all across the nation. You can reach them at 800-693-4800 or on the web at legalhelpforveterans.com. We want to welcome to Veterans Radio today Steve White, U.S. Army Infantry Officer. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but he's also had a long and successful career in the franchise world, so we want to talk about franchising and its value to veterans and some of his current involvements. Steve, welcome to Veterans Radio.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks for inviting me today. I always love to talk about my military experience, but even more so, all the wonderful franchisees I've worked with along the way who were also military veterans.
Well, one of the things we were talking before we started, you are what's known as a Youper. You may have to explain that to some people, but you went to Northern Michigan University on an ROTC scholarship, and that's how you got yourself into the U.S. Army. But let's start with, where'd you grow up and what is a Youper?
Okay, that's great. So Michigan has two peninsulas, the Lower Peninsula and the Upper Peninsula. And the Upper Peninsula over the years was referred to as the UP. And then over the years, that got contracted down to Youper. So if you're from the Upper Peninsula or UP, you're designated a Youper. And, oh, by the way, we also have a term for people born in the Lower Peninsula.
I knew where this was going.
The two peninsulas are connected by the Mackinac Bridge, the mighty Mackinac Bridge. To us, Youpers, the people who live in the Lower Peninsula below the bridge, therefore we refer to them as trolls.
And I am a troll, so yeah, I knew where that was going. So, Steve, you did ROTC to get yourself through school. You got one of those really important degrees, like political science major. But the Army said, you're ours for a while, and you served 6 years, I believe it is, 1980 to 1986. Tell us a little bit about your time in the Army.
It was pretty amazing, actually, because the Army scholarship was my ticket to school. Because my family is a wonderful family, but my parents couldn't afford a college education back in the day, and I got this scholarship from the Army, which enabled me to go to school at Northern Michigan in my hometown, and it was fantastic. But I was kind of a goofball in college. I mean, I had a lot of fun in college. I worked hard at my studies, but I knew where I was going when I graduated, and so I had some lofty aspirations to be something like a military intelligence officer or something. And the Army branched me infantry, and so I didn't know what that meant. And off I go to Fort Benning, Georgia. At the beginning of 1980, I got commissioned. My college graduation in December 79. And I go off to Fort Benning, Georgia. And lo and behold, the Army scraped enough crud off of the outside of me to find a responsible adult inside that I didn't even know was here.
The family didn't recognize.
Yeah, that's right. And turns out I went on to be really good at it. Who knew? And so I loved what I did. I love leading soldiers. I love what I did for my country. I would have done it probably. My dad was in the Army National Guard, in the Michigan National Guard, and he was my hero. And if I wouldn't have got the scholarship, I would have probably found some other way to serve. But it worked out great for me, and I rose pretty quickly through the ranks. I was promoted to first lieutenant and a captain ahead of the curve back in the day, and it was really, really good for me. But I knew at the 6-year mark or so, as much as I loved it, as good as I was at it, I knew that where I really wanted to do was business in my career. And the headhunters had come calling early on. Back in my day, if you're a good Army officer, the headhunters would come all the way to Europe. So I spent over 3 years of my 6 years in service were spent in Germany. So, I went to initial training, Fort Benning, then I went to Germany for 3rd Armored Division, back to Benning, then off to Fort Carson, Colorado, 4th Infantry Division, and that's where I finished. And then while I was gone, my parents had moved to Ann Arbor, and they were both working at the University of Michigan. And so I decided to come back, and before I went with the big-time headhunter, I'd take a look around, and I mean, less than 30 days after I took off that camouflage uniform, I had two opportunities, one in the University of Michigan Hospital and one across town at this company that was building a headquarters called Domino's Pizza. That's the one I took. And that was 38 years ago. I cannot believe it.
And it really has. It really sent the trajectory of your life, because you've stayed in franchising ever since. At Domino's for a number of years, then on to Allegra Network, which some folks might know as Signs Now, and now coming out of retirement, if you will, to PuroClean. But let's talk about the allure, the fit between franchising and veterans. There's something there, isn't there?
There 100% is. There 100% is. And it's been my passion. And, as a franchise company, we're part of the International Franchise Association, and they have a big initiative for veterans called VetFran. And that's been my passion work for almost 20 years there. But it has given me a broad view of franchising beyond the companies that I've been in, and I've been able to see how military veterans can plug it in. And I would say this: when I came out of the Army, having listened to the headhunters that were trying to get me to leave the Army and go into business, they told me about how my skills would apply. I get into franchising, and my first boss said, none of the things that you learned in the military will apply to business. You're going to have to learn everything over from scratch.
He would have said the same thing if you were right out of college. He would have said the same thing. Nothing you learned in college is going to apply here.
Yeah, and they were 100% wrong. Everything I learned in the military applied to business: leadership, training, following systems, problem solving, accomplishing the mission, doing everything with a heart to serve. Now, all of those things applied in incredibly important ways to my business career.
And let me back up here, too, because I made a joke about your undergraduate degree in political science, but I did so because I read a quote from you in military.com where you said, I knew almost nothing about business when I started. And I think sometimes we get afraid to take the first step because I'm not an expert like that guy over there. Tell us about that transition.
Right. Well, that transition for me was really good. I think I had the benefit of a couple of things. I read a couple of books back in the day about there were some guys who had written some marketing books based on military principles, and it just flipped all the switches for me. But more so, talking to these recruiters that were trying to get me out, they knew what they were talking about, right? And So all of those skills that I learned applied really well. And they, especially to franchising, more than normal business. Why? Because every franchise company is a system with a set of systems, right? I don't care if you're making a McDonald's quarter pounder or if you are engaged in the science of helping somebody restore their home after it's been flooded, like we do at PuroClean. We all have systems to follow. And one of the most important things you learn in the military is to follow a system. We call it SOP, Standard Operating Procedures, in the military, but it's a system. And we learn how to follow systems. And so it's every franchise is one. The military veterans come into a franchise, they recognize the system, they follow the system, and the system takes them to great success.
Well, the other thing I think you learn, particularly in the infantry and the Army, but I think across all the services, you got to work it. You got to work hard. You got to work when you're tired. You got to work every day. You got to get up and, maybe somebody's yelling at you to get up, but you got to get up and move. And to be a successful businessman in a franchise, that's part of the secret sauce, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And most military veterans come with a really strong work ethic, right? And PuroClean, my company, we are owned by two investors, Mark Davis and Frank Torrey, and they're both like that. And Frank in particular talks about every day I get out of bed, first thing I do is kick my own butt and get moving into life, right? And Frank, Frank is actually the son of a military veteran. His dad served in the Marine Corps in World War II in a famous unit called Carlson's Raiders, and so I think his dad instilled that in him early on. And you're right. You got to do the work. You get up every day. You got to do the work. I think that's true in anything. In franchising, if you apply the work to a system, you get big success.
And many franchises, you mentioned VetFran, but many franchises, there's a cost to buy in. Explain to folks how you get involved in a franchise and what help might be available.
Yeah, so for example, if somebody is interested in PuroClean, they can come to PuroClean.com, and that's our general website. But if you're interested in it as a franchise business, you go to PuroCleanFranchise.com, and there are all these great resources that talk to you about that. We're really drilled down into veterans as well. So you can go to PuroVet.com, no spaces or anything like that. And it's specifically structured for military veterans. But it's about, every franchise comes with an investment, right? Because every franchise in the world, a lot of people don't know this, every franchise in the world is independently owned and operated business. And I've got 465 PuroClean franchisees today across the United States and Canada, and they're all independently owned and operated businesses. So it's a wonderful thing to investigate that opportunity. And I think it's a really important thing, because one of the things that we're trying to do, Jim, is that as you look at service members leaving active duty service, the military branches do things like interview skills and resume writing skills. Those are skills to get a job. They don't do anything to help you understand how you can own your own business. If you come into something like PuroVet.com and look at it, it tells you how you can own your own business and live anywhere you want. You want to go back to your hometown, you want to stay where you left the military, whatever. There's some franchise opportunity where you can own your own business, but yet still be part of a major brand and part of a system. And there's always a franchise fee, and you've got, in our case, you've got to buy a truck and equipment. But we are already ranked as one of the most low-cost franchise opportunities somebody can get into. And then in addition to that, we're also ranked in the top 10 most military veteran-friendly franchises in America.
Wow, that's great to hear. And I should explain that PuroClean is a leader in property emergency services. That's helping families and businesses overcome setbacks caused by water, fire, mold, other damage conditions. So it's really a response and restore kind of rescue operation. Tell us the type of person who gets drawn into this type of franchise, if you will, Steve.
So, Jim, I don't know if it is our business model attracts people with a big heart, or once you get into our business model, it conditions you to have a big heart. But I have the most amazing set of franchisees I've ever worked with in my long career. And I think it's the nature of the work they do, because every single day something bad happens to someone where they work or where they live, right? Just as you just said, water, fire, mold damage, whatever it is. And PuroClean, after the plumber turns off the busted pipe or after the fireman puts out the fire, PuroClean's the next thing on scene to start putting life back together for those people. So my franchisees, I tease them sometimes that they have Superman syndrome, not in terms of invincibility or the ability to fly, but in terms of flying to the rescue of poor people who just had something bad happen to them. It's what they do every day. And it attracts these people with this big heart to serve. And so one more reason why it's so good for military veterans is because we go from having a heart to serve our country to having a heart to serve our local community, not in a way with weapons, but in a way with tools to help people recover from something bad that's happened to them.
And I think one of the things on PuroClean's part too is that every day is different, right? Every emergency, every problem is different. And there are some folks who like consistent routine. If I want my Domino pizza, I want it to taste exactly the same as the last one did.
Right.
But every day, every call is going to send me in a new direction. And again, I think there are certain types of veterans who that was the experience they had and what gave them the adrenaline rush to get up and go every day.
Yeah. No, at PuroClean, we don't want you as the business owner to be on the truck for very long. We get it when you're first starting the business and you're small and especially if you're coming in at a low investment cost and you've got the basics to get started in business, that's awesome. We've had lots of people come in at the basics and go on to create generational wealth for their family. But we don't want you behind that wheel of the truck for very long. We want you to be the team leader. We want to get you up over the top of that business and build a significant enterprise. So, when I first came to this business in 2013, when I was first recruited to this position, the company was much smaller because the franchisees were much smaller. And we've worked really hard during my tenure and Mark and Frank's ownership to grow the individual franchisees we already have. And they are now almost 4 times the size on an average basis that they were when I entered the business. And so we've had a lot of success with people starting hands-on, but then lifting them up to build a team. And, our military veterans would be familiar with this. Our philosophy is we'll help you to build the team and then let that team build your business. And It's really amazing when we get to that level and see them and how it changes their life.
And as you've grown the size of these franchisees, give us some sense of how many employees they might have. Is this just a family business or something more? And talk about territory. I think that's something that veterans would be interested in understanding as well.
Well, in terms of size, the average franchisee's probably got 10 or 20 employees. That's the average one. Certainly have much bigger than average. And so that's kind of a rough size. You can go super huge. The beautiful thing about franchising is you do it to the level of your comfort. I have people, I have a franchisee last year that did over $20 million in sales. He has a huge, huge team. And I also have franchise owners who get in a comfort zone, like less than $1 million a year, and they don't want to grow a lot more than that. Well, at the end of the day, I'm here to support them. right? We're a servant leadership model, and we're here to support them to accomplish their goals. If they've got an amazing lifestyle at $1 million a year in revenue, and they're super happy about that, then I kind of got to live with that and support that and be happy with it. So at the end of the day, it's got to be about helping these franchisees accomplish their goals for what they want to do. And, we're here to serve, train, support, lead, empower them to get there.
Talk about territory a little bit, because, again, this is kind of a unique aspect of franchising. Every business actually has a service territory. They may not know it is defined as such, but there really is.
There really is. In restoration, property restoration, generally speaking, territories are defined by population. Because you can go to the very detailed insurance databases for covered losses in previous years, and everything's broken down by population. And so we've looked at other metrics in the past, but the one that always rises up as the number one is population. And we settled on that years and years ago. And when I came to the company, the company was granting a territory of 100,000 in population, which is plenty to be successful. That's probably high for the industry standard, but it's plenty to be successful. I really felt strongly that the franchisees needed a little bit more elbow room. So we've around those territories, we've wrapped what we call a halo, so a buffer zone between where I can put in another franchise of an additional 150,000 people. So they, instead of a market area of 100,000, they start coming out the door with a market area of like 250,000 in population. And that's plenty of room to build a very large business. And that's worked really, really well for us in our business.
Well, it gives you a customer base, but it also gives you advertising coverage, which is one of those things that franchising does for you that as an independent business is tough to do. But before we wrap this up, Steve, be a little reflective here as you think about your long career in franchising and your career in the military. Do you see that there's sort of a correlation? If I hadn't done that initially, maybe I wouldn't be where I am today?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Hard work, discipline, sticking to it, focus on the mission, always with a heart to serve, building teams. I'm telling you, so many of those things, Jim, that I got in the military serve me so well today. And I see how well they're serving our franchisees, right? And we have a broad spectrum of military veterans. I mean, I got a guy who's still active in the Air Guard as a crew chief on C-130s, all the way up to I've got colonels. I've got a retired brigadier general as one of my franchise owners. And so, they are all an example every single day about how all those things that we learned in the military apply so incredibly well to this PuroClean business.
Well, we'd certainly encourage those veterans who maybe have been out for a while looking for something that, maybe they're tired being the employee, they want to be the employers. Maybe they found out that they like something different every day. To look at franchising and look at PuroClean. Give us that website that they can go to drill down at your company.
Yep, you can come to purovet.com or you can come to purocleanfranchise.com. They both talk to you about the PuroClean franchise opportunity, but the purovet.com really drills down a little bit more specifically for military veterans.
Well, we're glad that former U.S. Army infantry officer Steve White, affectionately a Youper, and CEO of PuroClean, COO and president, I should say, of PuroClean, had some time to talk to Veterans Radio today. Steve, we really appreciate it.
Jim, thank you so much. And as I sign off, I just want to say thank you, express my gratitude to all my brothers and sisters who've served, and especially all my brothers and sisters who serve currently today in PuroClean.
And I want to thank everybody for listening to Veterans Radio today. I am Jim Fausone. It's
It's been a pleasure to be your host. I'm a veterans disability lawyer at Legal Help for Veterans, and you can reach us at 800-693-4800 or legalhelpforveterans.com on the web. You can follow Veterans Radio on Facebook and listen to its podcasts and internet radio shows
by visiting us at veteransradio.org. That's veteransradio.org.
And until next time, you are dismissed.
If you have a VA claim denied by the Board of Veterans' Appeals, contact Legal Help for Veterans at 1-800-693-4800. They're experts in handling cases before the U.S. Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims. Their number again, 1-800-693-4800.
We again want to thank our national sponsors, the National Veterans Business Development Council, NVBDC.org, VA Ann Arbor Health Care System, the Vietnam Veterans of America Charles S. Kettles Chapter, Ann Arbor, Michigan, VFW Graf O'Hara Post 423 in Ann Arbor, and the American Legion Press Corn Post 46, also in Ann Arbor. We appreciate all your support. You can go to veteransradio.net, click on the sponsor level, and continue to support keeping Veterans Radio on the air. And until next time, you are dismissed.